Welcome into the Michigan Football Report. Ladies and gentlemen, we're days away from an epic matchup of two of the most storied programs of all time, Alabama and Michigan, in the Citrus Bowl. And to give you some insight into the Crimson Tide, is friend of the program, Ricky Green. You can find him on Twitter at BamaRLG. The Tide, a touchdown favorite, which is surprising to a lot of Michigan fans. I'll tell you what, they thought Michigan would be 17-point underdog to Alabama. 7 points has held steady at the spread, and Michigan has the opportunity to pull off maybe the biggest victory in Jim Harbaugh's career, beating the top program in all of college football. Ricky, welcome to the show. Talk about the matchup right from the start, what you see from Alabama, what you see from Michigan.
As you already said, this is a huge matchup. Historically speaking, I think it's a chance for both programs to kind of overcome some of the disappointments that they may have had this year. And I think both teams will be looking to start 2020 out the right way, and this is an opportunity to do so here.
So Terrell Lewis, Alabama's linebacker, he was hurt all of 2018. He didn't have the eye-popping stats. It seems like he rotated in and out of the starting lineup throughout his career at Alabama. What are the Tide missing with him opting not to play in the bowl game?
Well, first and foremost, Terrell Lewis is a dynamic pass rusher, probably one of the best in the country when it comes to being able to do the things necessary to really get after the quarterback. And I think that not having him against Michigan probably will hurt Alabama the most in that aspect. He was really one of just only a couple of guys that we had that could seriously turn it loose and cause issues for an opposing quarterback. So backups are capable, no doubt about it, but there's definitely going to be a gap there talent-wise between Terrell Lewis and some of the backups that we'll see in his place.
Also not playing in the game, Trayvon Diggs, third-team AP All-American, opted not to play in the game. He's a senior. I was surprised by this one. I actually thought, to be honest, Ricky, that you'd have 6, 7, maybe as many as 10 Alabama players sitting out this game, given the fact that it's not a college football matchup. But I'm surprised and impressed that you're only missing Diggs, you're only missing Lewis. Why do you think that happened, and what's the loss of Diggs mean in this matchup?
Diggs, of course, is one of our better cover guys. I think a lot of the attitude that the team has at this game, looking at it from the Alabama standpoint, Tua Tagovailoa called a players-only meeting early last week, sat down with the guys that are eligible for the draft and kind of talk to them about what it meant to be at Alabama and finishing this year out the right way for the team. And I think that Tua is largely responsible for the amount of draft eligible juniors that we have that will have playing in this game. So his just who he is. He's a competitor. Even though he won't be playing, he's been present in every practice. First guy off the jet when it touched down in Orlando. So I think Tua had a lot to do with the fact that we're going to have most of our draft-eligible juniors playing against Michigan in this Citrus Bowl.
And it's really surprising to me, I think, that Nick Saban, impressive over and over, that he's just able to keep players motivated after all these years, which I don't know if Jim Harbaugh has been able to do that at all times. Specifically, even think about last year when you had 4 players sit out of the bowl game in a New Year's Six Bowl against the Florida Gators. So those are the players out. You've got Terrell Lewis, Trayvon Diggs, Tua Tagovailoa, of course, and then Dylan Moses, who was lost before the season started, their All-American level linebacker. We today are presented by Fanatics, guys. There are some awesome sales on Michigan gear and actually Alabama gear for you Tide fans who are watching. But go to chatsports.com/blue. Sweatshirts, jerseys. You see this Jordan shirt I'm wearing here, folks? The very sleek game day coach's shirt, half off right now. The Michigan Jordan shoes, $30 off. Chatsports.com/blue. It'll be below in the comments section, or just type that into your browser. Bama fans, you could type it into. Go navigate over to the Alabama page, see what discount they have for you there. All right. Let's take a look at this Citrus Bowl matchup, Alabama, Michigan. We are joined by Ricky Green. You can find him on Twitter at BamaRLG. If you want to join the conversation leading up to the Citrus Bowl, during the game, after the game, hashtag Bama Bros on Twitter is the place to be. Really enjoyed getting to know Ricky, following him on Twitter over the last few weeks. leading up to this game. So that is the ask from you guys. Make sure you follow him. Make sure you use that hashtag when talking about Michigan versus Alabama. Now, I want to ask you the perception of Jim Harbaugh, the perception of the Michigan football program from an Alabama fan perspective.
Okay, so, I had a friend of mine that I had a conversation with this morning, and I posed the question to him, just kind of trying to get a pulse of where all Alabama fans were, as far as this matchup is concerned, as far as Michigan is as a program and Harbaugh is as a coach. And, he said that to him, Michigan is kind of like the Auburn of your conference. Auburn is a team that you can always count on to win 9, 10, 11 games in the regular season. They get talent. It just seems like sometimes they have trouble getting over that final hump and reaching that elite level, playoff level. And I think that's an accurate comparison there. I think Harbaugh is definitely a good college football coach. I believe that Michigan is one of the true blue bloods of college football. So we have a ton of respect for Michigan as a program. We're just kind of sitting back, I guess maybe as Michigan fans are as well, waiting to see when Michigan will finally get over that hump.
Yeah, definitely. If you'd asked me, 5 years ago when Jim Harbaugh got hired, it's actually coming up the 30th, so 3 days from now, it'll be 5 years since Harbaugh got the job. If you would have told me that he'd have 0 wins versus Ohio State, 0 Big Ten championships, 0 college football playoff appearances, I would have told you, you are crazy. We're going to get Ricky's prediction for this game in a moment, but want to give you guys, the viewing audience here on YouTube, the opportunity to win $25. All you got to do, accurately predict the score. Citrus Bowl, Michigan versus Alabama. The first person below correctly predicts the score, I will Venmo you $25 shortly after the game. But make sure you tell me which team's going to win, because you can't just put 38-28 and it's one winner or another and you can say, oh, I knew that team was going to win. So make sure you tell me the team and the score. Predict below. You may get a commercial break if you're watching on YouTube. Go down. I'll pin it below in the comments section. By the time you scroll back up, the commercial will be over. Let's get into Ricky Green, Alabama extraordinaire, one of the best follows on Twitter for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Your 3 keys to the game. Why don't you start off with number 1? You told me it was balance on offense.
Yeah, I think that it's particularly important for Alabama to be balanced on offense, especially considering that we won't have Tua available for the game. Mac Jones is a very, very capable backup. I think he proved that even in the loss to Auburn. He's capable of making all the throws, but we're going to have to run the ball. We need to lean on Michigan's defense early and set up the run game, and hopefully that'll open up some play action type stuff as we get into the game. But I think first and foremost, we're going to have to be balanced on offense and really be able to run the ball.
Absolutely. Number 2, third downs. And we talked about before the show, efficiency on offense, stopping the third down on defense. So thinking about it from a Michigan fan's perspective, where is the Tide, potentially exploitable when Michigan has the ball? And then on the opposite side, Michigan fans have been just pulling their hair out for years that Don Brown will give up 3rd and 16, but he won't give up a 3rd and 2.
Yeah, as odd as it may sound, that's kind of a familiar place with Alabama as well. It seems like the longer the down and distance is on 3rd down, the better chance the opponent has of converting that. So it's really a weird deal. Defensively, if Michigan is going to exploit anything on Alabama's defense, our middle linebackers, they're young. We talked about not having Dylan Moses available. 2 true freshmen starting in the middle of that defense. They've done a great job so far this year. I think that they played better than I anticipated, better than many anticipated, but they can still get lost at times, especially if Michigan does any type of motions pre-snap or offers any kind of eye candy. That'll be an area where they could definitely take advantage of what Alabama's bringing on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure. Now, number 3, turnovers. So, tell a Michigan fan, has Mac Jones protected the ball? I know we had a couple, turnovers versus Auburn, and that maybe could potentially cost them the game. But what are you thinking about from a turnover perspective let's just talk about the Alabama offense.
Well, Mac Jones, he's kind of got a gunslinger mentality. So it makes me a little bit nervous at times, having Mac thinking that he can make throws that aren't really there. And that's the biggest thing that I think he's going to have to do in this game is be willing to just take what the defense gives you. We hear that over and over again talking about college football, but having Mack in the game at quarterback, that's going to be especially true for Alabama if we're to have success against Michigan's defense.
His name is Ricky Green. You can follow him on Twitter at BamaRLG. Joining us now talking about the Crimson Tide facing Michigan Wolverines Wednesday, 1 o'clock in Orlando. Now, we've talked about your three keys to the game. We're going to talk about the players that are going to be missing for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Let's take a deeper dive into the offense for Alabama. Talk to a Michigan fan who hasn't been as familiar with Mac Jones. What's the difference, I'm guessing in a negative perspective, of the Alabama offense in the two games that Mac Jones has started for you guys?
I think that with Mac Jones at quarterback, Michigan fans can kind of expect to see maybe an Alabama offense from 3 to 4 years ago prior to Tua arriving at Alabama. We were a run first to set up play action, defense oriented team. And I think that with Tua, that changed quite a bit. We became more dynamic on offense. I think that with him not being available and Mac playing quarterback, him being the signal caller, I think that Mac is very capable, but I think that Michigan fans should not by any means be expecting to see the high-powered offense that Alabama has fielded for the past couple of seasons.
But still, Mac Jones pretty good at getting Alabama's four wide receivers that are first-round potential, whether it's this year or next. Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, and then Jerry Jeudy, of course, had decent games against Western Carolina with 3 catches for Waddle, 101 yards and a touchdown. Devonta Smith, 2 touchdowns versus Western Carolina. But Jerry Jeudy didn't seem to really jump out on the stats in either game against Western Carolina or against Auburn. We'll kind of talk about those stats here in a second. But talk to me about how the wide receivers have, worked with Jones and what you saw in the difference between Western Carolina to the Auburn game.
Well, first of all, the wide receivers, from all indications, are completely confident in Mac's ability. They've got Mac's back. They're supporting him. They're trusting him to lead them out into this game and try to come away with a victory. One of the guys that wasn't mentioned just a few moments ago, Henry Ruggs III, we're talking about a guy that's expected to possibly break the NFL Combine record in the 40-yard dash time. So Alabama really has 4 guys that can take the ball to the house at any given time. It's just going to be, finding that balance. These receivers trust Mac. Mac can make all the throws, but it's just a slightly different dynamic with Tua not being in there. Tua's a left-handed quarterback. Mac's a right-handed quarterback. As a receiver, it's a lot different catching balls from one versus the other. So there have been some adjustments that have had to have been made. But overall, the wide receivers are confident in Mac, and I think he'll get the job done.
And one of the best offenses in the country the last couple of years with Tua Tagovailoa. May never see him in a Tide uniform again. Potentially, we could all be surprised. I know there's some chatter about him wanting to come back and win a Heisman, all those different things. But if we think about Mac Jones, think about him going forward a year. Is this in a lot of ways, could this potentially be a audition to be the starter next season?
Absolutely. I think it most definitely is an audition. As you said, we have Tua's younger brother on campus, of course, already. We just signed Bryce Young as a member of the 2020 recruiting class for Alabama. Bryce Young's an incredible young athlete, probably one of the most polished quarterbacks that I've seen coming out of high school. So it'll be interesting. There'll definitely be a battle for that quarterback spot in Tuscaloosa next spring. And I think that battle realistically could start right coming up in this Citrus Bowl matchup. So,
yeah, 4 touchdowns versus Auburn, 2 costly interceptions, but good stats, good yards for Mac Jones against the Auburn Tigers in a loss that, unfortunately for you guys, knocked you out of your 6th straight college, am I right? 6th straight college football appearance it would have been in the first 5, not in this year. So I want to ask the audience, and then Ricky, you can answer as well, which quarterback will have more passing yards in this game? If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and type P for Shea Patterson down in the comments. Type J if you think it's Tide quarterback Mac Jones. P for Patterson, J for Jones. Ricky, what is your answer on this one? Which quarterback will throw more passing yards in this game?
So this is actually something that is one of my biggest concerns headed into this game. Michigan has a couple of very capable, tall receivers. Peoples-Jones is one. Alabama has struggled in recent history with taller wide receivers. guys that can go up and compete for 50-50 balls. And that's something that I'm actually really concerned about headed into this matchup. Alabama fans probably won't appreciate it, but I would at this point say that probably Shea Patterson and Michigan will hold the edge in passing yards.
You know, from my perspective, I think that Michigan's only true advantage in this game right now is at the quarterback position. You guys, as Tide fans, probably don't follow this as closely as Michigan fans do, but Michigan's never had a quarterback in the history of the program throw 300 yards in 3 straight games, which Shea Patterson just did. Also has never had a quarterback throw for 4 touchdowns or more in 2 straight games, which he did in the final 2 games before Ohio State. It was the Michigan State and the Indiana game. So they struggled throughout the first half of the year, maybe 2/3, but the offense has really kind of come on here in the last few weeks. So I want to give the audience an opportunity one more time. Predict the score, Michigan, Alabama, and send one of you guys $25 via Venmo, the first person. Get down there right now. Give me your score predictions. First one to predict the score, $25. Ricky, I want to hear your take on the game, your quick score prediction.
Okay, so as I said when we opened the segment earlier, I think that this is first and foremost an opportunity for both programs to have a chance to kind of right the ship. Michigan, again, has lost to Ohio State. Alabama fell to 2 of their biggest rivals this season. And it's very important. I think it's actually crucial for both programs to kind of put forth their best effort in this game and get a positive start on next season. Ultimately, though, I think Alabama may just be a little bit too much athletically. I'm not expecting a blowout, but I think somewhere around a 35-20 type game is about what I expect to see.
You heard it from him. Ricky Green at BamaRLG on Twitter. Also use hashtag BamaBros. 35-20 Alabama over Michigan. What's his prediction? Again, reminder, go down into the comments section, predict the score. We've got it pinned there for you. You can't miss it. Make your prediction. First one to do it. And, of course, mention the team, who you think is going to win, folks. Will win $25. I'll Venmo you within a day or 2 after the game being over. Let's take a look at the betting matchup. Over-under is 57.5 points. Alabama, surprisingly, only a 7-point favorite. If I was handicapping this game, I might have guessed without knowing what the sports books would have it at as Alabama minus 14, maybe minus 17 going into this matchup. BetDSI is our sportsbook partner, folks. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code GOBLUE. Alabama fans can use it too. Get 120% deposit bonus. Don't feel dirty, Alabama fans. Make sure you get that deposit money. Chatsports.com/bet. But yeah, you got to use our promo code GOBLUE. Michigan, Alabama in the Citrus Bowl coming up on Wednesday. We are joined by Ricky Green at BamaRLG and use hashtag BamaBros, 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 to get into the conversation around Alabama football over the next 5 days before this matchup comes up. Now I want to take a look at the Alabama defense. And I'll be frank, Alabama defense my entire life has been the most unstoppable, immovable force in all of college football. But since about the middle of the second quarter, maybe the middle of the first quarter against Clemson in Santa Clara in the national title game, they haven't been as scary as the Alabama defense I know, and have had 2 quarterbacks put up some pretty decent numbers. Several quarterbacks put up decent numbers this year, but most recently, Joe Burrow, 31 of 39 for 393 and 3 touchdowns. What is the strengths? What's the weakness of this Alabama defense from what you can tell any Michigan fans watching?
This is a defense that is incredibly young. I think we have, at one point or another during the season, fielded as many as 7 true freshmen on defense when the game was on the line and it mattered most. Injuries have just been almost a crazy anomaly in Tuscaloosa over the past couple of years. And even prior to the beatdown that Clemson laid on us this past season, there were some telltale signs that Alabama fans we're starting to see that, this defense may not be on the same elite level that it has been prior to the past couple of seasons. So a lot of chatter in Tuscaloosa about will Nick Saban make a change at defensive coordinator after the close of the season. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of things going on there. Definitely something that Alabama fans are disappointed in. And we're hoping that we see these young guys mature and step up and accept this challenge that they'll have when they take the field against Michigan. And just really at this point, we're all hoping for a better outcome.
And so thinking about a Michigan fan's perspective, if they didn't watch the entire Alabama-Auburn game, how did Auburn put up 48 points when Bo Nix only threw for 173 yards and only completed 15 passes?
A lot of that was lack of discipline on Alabama's part. You had, like I referred to earlier, we have two freshman middle linebackers. Those guys were really having a hard time reading their keys, filling the right gaps, just doing the little things that matter most. Alabama has kind of shot itself in the foot over and over again this season. We've seen a turnover margin that doesn't favor Alabama really in a couple of games, especially in the two losses. Then penalty-wise, we're used to seeing much more discipline from these guys in a Nick Saban coach defense, and that's something that's been lacking this season. So those are just a couple of the things that I think that happened in the Auburn game that wound up giving them the edge. And, of course, Alabama fans will always tell you that there's some sort of voodoo inside of Jordan-Hare Stadium, and it almost felt like that was true this past game. So,
yeah, absolutely. Kick six this past game, the 24-0 blown lead in 2010. I've drove back from many Michigan-Ohio State games watching Auburn, Alabama on my phone or something like that, and seen a few just baffling losses for the Tide when it comes to those years that Auburn gets the victory. But the game, folks, is just a few days away, Wednesday, January 1st in Orlando. It's the Citrus Bowl between Alabama and Michigan. The Tide favored by 7 points. We've been talking to Ricky Green. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at BamaRLG. Use that hashtag or search for Bama Bros if you want to get into the conversation of what they're talking about leading up to this Citrus Bowl game. Ricky, hopefully you can join us sometime after the matchup. We can kind of recap what happened in this Citrus Bowl.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Had a great time. Thanks for having me on, and we'll do it again.
All right, thank you.
All right.
You've been watching the Michigan Football Report. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, folks. Hit the subscribe button. Never miss a video anytime we put one up on YouTube. And while you're waiting for the game, we've got some more Michigan football coverage for you right here, and our Michigan-Alabama preview right here. Go Blue.